Are you afraid of running out of things to say during part 2 of the IELTS speaking exam? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about organizing your answer, sounding natural, and how to avoid coming off as robotic and overprepared, which is something examiners hate. My name is Kevin. I'm an English teacher with over 10 years experience, and I'm a former IELTS examiner, and I'm here to help you on part 2. So let's start with a brief overview of part 2. And part 2 is what we call the long turn. You have 1 minute to prepare after I give you a card, and you have exactly 2 minutes and not 1 second more to give me an answer. This is all you. You're telling me what you think, and there is no help from me. One thing the examiner will tell you is that you have up to 2 minutes for the response. But I always tell my students to speak for as long as they can. That means speak until the examiner says thank you. Because this is an English test, and the more speaking you do, the higher your score can potentially be. The examiner is watching his clock, and he will stop you speaking at exactly 2 minutes. You are not allowed to speak more. So just sit back, relax, and talk until the examiner stops you. That's really the best way. A question I frequently hear from my students is, do I have to answer everything that is on the card that the examiner gives me? Because if you haven't seen them before, it will be a topic, and it will say, you should say, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4. The answer is you do not have to say or address all the bullet points. In fact, you don't even have to talk about them. The bullet points are just there in case you don't have anything to say, or you're finding it difficult to come up with ideas. Quite honestly, as an examiner, I don't even look at the bullet points after I give them to you. I'm just sitting back and assessing your answer. I don't care if you're talking about them or not, as long as you're talking about the question, because that helps me know that you understand it, and that goes to coherence and fluency score. The key is giving a coherent, organized, and fluent response. So let's talk about how to do that and some mistakes that are made. One mistake that I frequently see is over-planning. You have a minute to prepare, and students are furiously writing an entire answer or full sentences. You just don't have time. So relax. Write down the main ideas of something you want to say. If there's any particular good vocabulary you want to use, you can write that down as well. But you don't have time to write full sentences, and you certainly don't have time to write a full answer. Another mistake is cramming advanced vocabulary in. I've talked about this in other videos. There's nothing wrong with using advanced vocabulary, but you have to use it in the appropriate places and appropriate spots, right? Sometimes the simple words just work, and you can drop in 1 or 2 more advanced vocabulary or some idiomatic phrases in a natural way with awareness of style to boost your score. But when I have students cramming every other word with advanced vocabulary, it makes me question whether or not they know the meaning of those words, whether or not they're using them in an organic, natural way, or whether or not they've just memorized a list of vocabulary and are spitting them back at me, thinking that if they use them, they're going to get a band 7 or band 8, because they're not. The last mistake is sounding generic. I've touched on this before as well. I don't want you to say, I like reading because it's fun, or tell me about something that I've heard a million times before. I want to hear a personalized story from you, something that you can speak about genuinely and honestly. Trust me when I tell you that if you draw an answer from your own experience, it's going to sound more natural. It's going to sound more relaxed, and you will be more relaxed. Because you're relaxed, you're going to use more advanced vocabulary without thinking about it, and your pronunciation, intonation, stress is going to be more natural. Trust me when I tell you this. Look, I examine and teach in Vietnam. A part 2 question might be about a holiday someone has taken. Everyone is going to say Da Nang. Everyone tells me about Da Nang. There's nothing wrong with telling me about Da Nang, but don't tell me about the city. Don't tell me about how blue the ocean water is, or the mountains, or the pagodas. Tell me about what you did. Tell me about who you went. More importantly, tell me about how you felt when you were there. To me, emotion, memories always make an answer better and always lead to a better score. I don't know why emotions have that power, but I feel that they relax the person taking the test and just help them across all bands. Trust me, give me a personal story, something that makes you emotional. Now, I know some people might say, what if I can't think of anything? I don't really think that's a problem. The questions in IELTS Part 2 are pretty relatable and have happened to most people. But okay, maybe it hasn't happened to you. You don't have a personal story. Does someone you know have a personal story that you can tell that is a good substitute? For example, your best friend, your mom, your dad. You could even be honest and say, for example, if I ask you about a holiday, the last holiday you were on, maybe you've never been on a holiday. You could say, I've never been on a holiday, but a place that I've always wanted to go is Phu Quoc because a friend of mine went there and told me about it. That's okay. As long as you are touching the topic of the answer, as long as I understand that you understand the question and you're talking about it, that's great. That will still be a great answer. It doesn't have to happen to you personally. Don't worry about that. So that really leads into certain strategies for success. Remember the 3 E's. Give me an elaboration. That means tell me more about what you mean. Give me an example. Give me an example of a holiday you took, a book you've read, a person you know, and build on that example. Give me emotion through story. Sometimes you can do all 3. Remember, I want you to speak for a full 2 minutes. So give me as much as you possibly can. The second tip is to practice thinking in English. When you're preparing before you go into the exam, it's always a good idea to think in English because it's faster. You do not have a lot of time to prepare. Sometimes I see students writing in Vietnamese, and I assume they're then going to translate as they talk to me. I don't think that is a good idea. I think it's a waste of time, and I think it will slow down your response and affect your fluency score. The third tip is to trust yourself to sound natural. Fluency is more important than perfection. Even with native speakers, I never hear anyone speaking perfectly. We all make mistakes. We make grammar mistakes, pronunciation mistakes. I am 45 years old, and I still learn new words when I read unfamiliar topics. Go in, relax, and do your best to give a fluent, coherent, natural-sounding response. I already know you will not be perfect. So it is a waste of time for you to go in and worry and think, oh my gosh, I need to be perfect, I need to be perfect, I need to be perfect. You don't. I know you will not be perfect. Aim for a solid score. Aim for sounding natural. Aim for being coherent. Aim for giving me good vocabulary, good pronunciation, good intonation. But also accept that you will make some mistakes, and that's okay. Finally, my final tip is to use your prep time wisely. Sometimes I see students who don't prep at all. And when I see that, I know their answer is not going to be the best it could be. I am a native speaker. If I were to take an IELTS exam tomorrow, 100% I would use 1 minute to make some notes. 100%. Even as a native speaker, taking notes, making a plan will make my answer make more sense. It will be more coherent. It will be tighter. I will remember things better. Even if I write an answer and then don't look at it again, it will be fresh in my brain. It will give me a better answer. I promise you 100%. So when you have that minute, definitely use it to make notes. Write down your general topic. Write down an example. Write down the quick note on the story you're going to tell. Now, depending on your skill level, whether you have that answer in front of you or those notes in front of you or not is up to you. I personally think you don't need it. I personally think once you have it written down, you can pretty much slide it away. If you need it, you can go back. I definitely don't want you reading from the response because that's not natural sounding and it's going to affect a lot of things with your score. So take your notes, write down the bare minimum outline of what you need to speak for 2 minutes, and then trust yourself that you'll remember and that you'll be able to answer effectively. And as I said before, you're definitely going to make mistakes. The key is not to let those mistakes throw you off and stop you from answering. Don't worry. We know you're going to make mistakes because you're not perfect, but don't let it affect the fluency of your answer. So what are some ways that we can practice our Part 2 speaking? Well, you could practice in front of a mirror and watch yourself. Remember that a lot of communication is nonverbal, right? I think it's important to make eye contact with the examiner. I think it's important to use your hands when you speak. It's what we do naturally. For me, it's much more unnatural to sit here like this and talk like this than it is to talk like this. Talking in my normal way relaxes me, and it's going to help me and you give a better answer. So practice in front of your mirror. Record yourself and see how you look. Another thing is to definitely practice timing. Remember, I want you to talk for a full 2 minutes. I want you to talk until your examiner tells you to stop. It's important that you know about how long 2 minutes feels like. You are not going to have a clock. You will not know how long the 1 minute prep time and the 2 minute speaking is until your examiner tells you. So when you practice Part 2, practice with a timer. Let yourself get a feeling for how long 1 minute is, and let yourself get a feeling for how long 2 minutes is. Many times I have students stop at about 1:30 thinking that they have given me their entire answer. They've exhausted everything they have to say because they didn't know how long 2 minutes is. This is especially true if you're nervous. If we're nervous, we tend to speak a little faster. Speaking faster is going to make your time seem longer, right? So if you stop at 1:30 and I ask you to tell me about a little bit more, you need to have something to say. The absolute worst thing you can do is to say at the end of your turn, that's it, or I have nothing else. Because then me, as an examiner, I can't help you. If you stop early, I can ask you to help me, or I can help you by asking you to tell me a little bit more. But if you tell me, that's it, I'm done, I can't help you. And it will really affect your score. The best way around this is to practice with a clock. Practice with a timer. We all have one on our phone, so you get an idea for how long 2 minutes is. That's really helpful. And the third tip is to find model answers online. You could even use ChatGPT or another AI chatbot to give you a model answer. Now, there's 2 warnings I want to give. One, if you're using a chatbot, ask for an answer at maybe the B1 English level. I have seen C1 answers, C2 answers, and they are crazy. They're using words that I would never, ever use. And B1s give a good mix of decent vocabulary, idiomatic phrases, and so on. The other thing that I must tell you about model answers is please do not memorize them. It will sound memorized. You will not sound natural, and it's just a huge waste of time. So, to recap, the 3 E's: example, elaborate, emotion, avoid over-planning, trust yourself to sound natural with a personalized response. For practicing, we can practice in front of a mirror. We absolutely have to practice with a timer so we get an idea for how long 1 minute is and 2 minutes. And we can use model answers, but only as long as we are mining the answers for some types of vocabulary, for certain idiomatic phrases. We never, ever, ever, ever want to memorize a model answer. Waste of time. So as always, if you find this video helpful, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Also, I know that part 2 is what most students worry about. So tell me, what do you worry about most, or what do you struggle with most when it comes to part 2? Leave it in the comments below and I'll respond and see if I can help out in any way. So until next time, happy studies.